Hello and welcome to After Sound Review, and this time I'm not only gonna review one product but three from the same brand. This is the Intime brand from Japan. So yeah, this is J-Fi, call whatever it means. First of all, thank you for Mr. Dede for providing me with his collection so I could review them. And these are the Intime brand. This is the Intime Sora Light. This is the Intime Midnight, and this is the Intime Go. They are varies in price, but they are all using only a single dynamic driver. Okay, just like usual, I will review them from the build, fit, frequency response, sound, and comparison. Right from the build quality itself, for me, they are all look similar, but if you take a look closer, they are definitely different, both in cable and in housing. For the housing itself, for me, this Intime Go and Intime Sora Light, despite their huge difference in price, they look and build similarly. They all have this plasticky part on the back end right here that is connected to the cable, and they have somehow this kind of metallic part, which I guess this is aluminum or maybe steel, I don't know, because they feels light in my hand. And also the nozzle is quite similar, only the Intime Go is bigger, see. And the housing of the Sora Midnight is actually the most different one, even though it looks similar to the Sora Light, but I can tell you that it's definitely much heavier and definitely feels all metallic. So for me, the most expensive looking one is actually the Sora Midnight. And the cable are also all different. Starting from the Sora Light, this is the one that makes me afraid the most because how brittle it looks. I mean, it looks just like this. It's really thin and has no detachable connector or whatsoever. It's just like this, so be careful when you're using it. And then the Sora Midnight is actually looks quite similar, but the cable feels not as it's more flexible than the Sora Light. It has some texture on it too, and it just feels better and a little bit durable, although it's still really thin, so I don't recommend you to use them on commute. And then when it comes to the cable of the Sora Go, it's the most different one because it's detachable and somehow has better sleeving on it. But I don't feel that this cable is actually really high quality too. I mean, compare them with this cable like from the Moondrop KXSS, is definitely more braided and somehow feels much more durable. And when it comes to fitting, they are all really good in my small Asian ears because how they fits, it's just they are like tubular shape like this, really simple, and I don't feel any discomfort after hours of using it. But again, I don't recommend them to be used at the commute or something like that, or maybe jogging. No, because they are not detachable. Okay, when it comes to frequency response, okay, let's take a look at this IEMs frequency response. Starting from its cheapest one, it is actually my most I think this is the most balanced of the three. Even though it's the cheapest, you can say it is somehow still can be categorized as somehow V-shaped-ish, thanks to its sub-bass elevation around this part, and also the 8 range actually is quite balanced, and also there's treble peak around this area. So because of that, I can see that it is somehow still V-shaped-ish. And please take note that this coupler that I use is definitely have resonance peaks around 8 to 10K, but this IM definitely can be heard as V-shaped-ish. Okay, let's compare them with its brothers like the Intime Sora Midnight, which is somehow the more, it is simply the brighter one. You can see that the upper mid-range is more pushed, and also the treble peak is higher, and that's definitely what you hear when you're switching from Sora Light into Sora Midnight. The Sora Midnight is brighter. Maybe some of you might say it's more V-shaped, but it's clearer. But yeah, it sounds thinner and might be more picky in some songs. And compared to the Intime Go, which is surprising for me because Truth be told, for me, this frequency response is the most unbalanced of all. You can see that it's the most W-shaped of the three. It's the least balanced of the three, because it has the biggest mid bass around this part. Yes, it's the bassiest of the three, and after this bump in the mid range, actually when you see this frequency response alone, the sub bass to the mid range, it can be categorized as somehow warmish with big bass IEM, but here's the catch: the treble peak around this part is so noticeable, so it can be quite fatigue for sometimes because of that. You can see, it's simply W-shaped ish in the most extreme ways compared to its brothers. So yeah, personally I like the tonality of the Intime Sora LiQWYD the most because it's simply the most balanced of the three. When it comes to the sound, I don't really feel that despite of their huge price difference like this. Sora Go is definitely twice the price of the Sora LiQWYD, but when I hear them, I honestly don't feel that huge gap in their sound. In fact, I like the tonality of the Sora LiQWYD the best, even though it is the cheapest of them all. And for me, when I'm using my source such as iFi XDSD, Qlix 5K, or iBasso DX160, or even my phone, they are not really hard to drive. And when it comes to the sound, they all have the same house sound, should I say, that it is V-shaped, that you get this emphasize on the lower end definitely, as you can see in the frequency response. Also somehow they have some emphasis in the upper treble rather than the lower treble. That's quite unique. They all have this kind of huge boost around the 8 to 10K, which is, yeah, I found it rather intriguing. And because of that, they have this kind of airiness at the treble, but it is really kind of prone to harshness if you hear some cymbal crash or some sibilance from S pronunciation in a bad recording music. Okay, let's just talk about the Sora LiQWYD. Sora LiQWYD is actually the most balanced sounding of them all. Yes, for me the vocal is the smoothest. The bass is actually quite similar to the Sora Midnight, but the vocal part is the smoothest one, is the most balanced one, even though for me it's still leaning towards a brighter sounding vocal. But nevertheless, I found it to be really enjoyable, even though I'm hearing a lot of harsh recording musics from J-pop or K-pop, but they still sounds the best, they still sounds the smoothest one, they still sound the most balanced. And then the Sora Midnight is actually the clearest one among these three, but it has this kind of the most thinnest vocal that you may get around these three, but you get this more clear vocals, better pronunciation in the vocal, and also better clarity in the treble part. But like I said, it somehow sacrificed some of its tonal balance, giving it the most thinnest vocal of them three. And if I should say, this is the strangest part, because the Intime Go is actually the most unbalanced tonality, as you can see in the frequency response, because how push the bass is, and also they really push the upper treble really hard. So for my ears, it feels the most V-shape of these three. The bass is the punchiest, is the biggest, but it's also the slowest. And also the treble is actually, if you hear some saxophone or violin, it's not really emphasized, but if you hear cymbal crash or sibilance from S pronunciation in the lyrics, you hear that it is actually the harshest sounding of them all. So yeah, the tonal balance is actually, I like Sora LiQWYD the best. When it comes to the bass, for me, the Sora LiQWYD and also the Sora Midnight has similar quantity and quality. They can both dig really deep in the bass and also quite punchy and quite fast actually. So if you love hearing music and if you love hearing speedy bass for rock music, for example, for me, They are both suitable, but thanks to the upper mid-range of this Sora Midnight that is more pronounced, it's better for rock music for me. While this is more suitable for pop music because how it is more smoother in the vocal. And also the bass in the Sora Go is actually the biggest, the boldest of them all, and I should say it quite suits the EDM genre or bass head genre. And when it comes to the vocal, for me it is no competition that the Sora LiQWYD is the most smoothest. Again, it is the most balanced of them all. Sora Midnight is the leanest of them all, but the Sora Go can be the harshest of them all, even though it has this kind of somehow similar vocal sensation, but this is more harsh definitely. If you have S or sibilance, this is more harsh. So yeah, for me again, the Sora LiQWYD is actually the most balanced sounding of them all, despite of its price tag. And when it comes to the soundstage and also separation, so what I mean the technicality around here, I should say again they are almost on the similar level actually. I don't really hear one is the best out of all. If I should say one the best, it is the Sora Midnight actually. It's the clearest one, it's the most separated one, but that's not far actually from this Sora LiQWYD or this Sora Go. It's not that far. If you hear them all, I'm sure you'll agree with me that they are not really different in the separation level. And below the separation level of the Sora Midnight is actually the Sora Go, and below the Sora Go is below the Intime Go, this is the Sora LiQWYD. So even though it's the, like I said, the best tonal balance of them all, the Sora LiQWYD is actually the least separated, is the least clear of these three. It's just the smoothest one. And when it comes to the soundstage, for me, the Sora Midnight and Sora LiQWYD is actually quite similar. And then the Go, even though it has this bass punch, it also has this 3D soundstage of them all. So if you're hearing to soundtracks or movies, for me the Intime Go is the one that could give you this wow effect from the bass or the sound from the movie itself. When it comes to comparison, I should say that, like I said before, that when I hear these three, actually I don't feel there's a huge sound gap in them all. But when I'm hearing this Moondrop KXSS, I could definitely feel there's a level of jump in their sound quality. Even though the sound quality is actually, the price tag is actually quite similar to this Intime Go, but KXSS is definitely the best balanced sounding of these all, and it is has the best soundstage and also best separation when I compare them four. So yeah, I don't gonna compare them with this KXSS because it's definitely simply is different level, even though it has similar price tag to this Intime Go. So I'm gonna review them with this Weezer HE1, which I consider to be the same level of the sound quality. Yes, for me, even though Intime Go is twice in the price tag compared to them 3, it's not that much of a difference. The quality level, the sound quality, the separation, also sound system level is not as good as this KXSS. It's actually on the same level as the Weezer HE1 or the Moondrop Stardust here. If I should say the level of separation, I will choose this Stardust the best. And this Sora Midnight is actually on the same level, but the upper mid-range is the most pronounced in the Moondrop Stardust, and thanks to that it could get the shoutiest one. And the Sora LiQWYD is still the smoothest, and then the Sora Midnight is still the leanest sounding in the treble area, and it's actually the best when it comes to instrumental. And if I should say that Weezer HE1 is here, and it's the most natural sounding of them all. Yeah, even though like I said, the tonal balance of the Sora LiQWYD is actually really good, but for me Weezer HG01 is actually better. Again, the vocal is more smoother, and also the treble is again smoother. I don't know what happened with the Sora LiQWYD. Like I said before, that they all have this kind of pushed upper treble sensation that this Weezer HG01 doesn't have, that somehow it makes it even smoother sounding and more organic sounding for my ears. The cymbal crash isn't as hard, the vocal is actually also smoother and again more organic. But the level of separation and actual technicality from this Weezer HG01 is actually on par with this Intime Sora LiQWYD. The Stardust and also the Midnight is actually more detailed and more clear. And again, the Intime Go is my least favorite sounding here because of how it feels really V-shaped compared to all of them. It's the most V-shaped one, it's the most unbalanced of them all, it's the most pushed in the upper treble region, that makes it the harshest sounding when I'm hearing cymbal crash and also when I'm hearing sibilance from a bad recording. So that's all. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you have any question, please write down in the comments below, and see you next time. Bye bye.